What's up, guys? Okay, so this is just a very quick rant. So at the time of this video, O.J. Simpson of the famed crime of the century or case of the century, right? The Nicole Brown and Ron Goldman murders. At the time of this video, O.J. Simpson has now been dead for about a month from cancer. So you know how this goes. Anytime there's any kind of O.J. Simpson adjacent story, it resurfaces everything about that trial of the century. And there's always a new documentary, or they will play the documentaries again on, like, you know, ABC or 2020 or whatever, right? So I, being fascinated by anything, you know, gloomy and psychologically perverse, I watched a documentary on the O.J. Simpson case, even though I've seen, like, 12, as I'm sure many of you have as well. And whenever that happens, then I get really curious, and the rest of the night I'm like researching stuff, right? Is that just me, by the way, or some of you like that too? Where like you become internet sleuth for the night and you're on Wikipedia, you're on the YouTube, you're everywhere doing research. So I'm doing my little midnight research, and I thought to myself, when somebody shows psychopathic tendencies, and yes, I'm implying that O.J. Simpson absolutely committed these murders, even though he was acquitted. Oftentimes, it's like there's a predisposition psychologically to these tendencies, but there's usually a link in childhood where you can trace this development. And more so than not, like if you look up any serial killer, 90+% of them growing up have abuse in the household, like really intense abuse that they are either the victims of or that they see between the parents or the family dynamic or whatever. So it got me curious. I was like, what was O.J. Simpson's childhood like? We don't really know, do we? All I knew was that he was this famed football player, American athlete hero, right? So I do some little research, and I discovered, and this was shocking to me, and I was also shocked that I've never heard this before because it's quite salacious. His dad was a well-known drag queen in the Bay Area, San Francisco area, in the 80s, and then died of AIDS, of all things, as a gay man died of AIDS in the 80s, about a decade before all of this happened with this trial of the century. I was so thrown off by this information because it was so random and so unexpected. And then I kept thinking about it, and I just found it more and more fascinating how this trial of the century really was like an American saga from start to finish. I mean, it has every element of an American drama. If you told me this story, like if I had no context on this, I would think it was the most nonsensical Lifetime movie drama, right? But it has every element of an American tragedy, an American blockbuster. It's got race relations, it's got the beautiful wife, the murder, the salacious details of like they were both seemingly having extramarital affairs and he was very jealous, and the bizarre cast of characters involved, the friends who didn't seem like great friends at all to Nicole Brown. And then you're telling me that the father of this American athletic hero, male figure hero, was the antithesis of, how do I say this? Like the opposite image of what people loved about O.J. Simpson, which is not just a gay man in the 80s who then died of AIDS, but a drag queen on top of it. And then it got me thinking about how this was the first claim to fame for the Kardashian name, right? Kim Kardashian's father was one of O.J. Simpson's lawyers in this famous case. And if you look at old school footage of the court scenes, you see Kris Jenner with then Bruce Jenner, who is now Caitlyn Jenner. So you're talking about two father figures associated with this story who were the opposite of what society wants a father figure and like an image of masculinity to be. Although ironically, Bruce Jenner was very similarly to O.J. Simpson, this American sort of masculine athletic hero image, but then became more similar to the image of O.J. Simpson's father, this LGBT pariah, let's say. I mean, not to say that Bruce Jenner at the time, now Caitlyn Jenner, was heavily involved with this trial, but just tangentially connected, and now of course much more famous through the Kardashian name. I just think it's so fascinating that there's another element to this whole saga that is so like juicy tabloid American drama, but it was real. All of this actually happened. It wasn't scripted. It wasn't a Lifetime movie. It was a real thing being caught in real time, which in retrospect was probably ushering in the beginning of reality TV. I mean, part of the intrigue with reality TV was not just the intimacy of connecting to people's real lives, but the fact that some of these people out here are living more interesting lives than the scripted stuff. Now, of course, the question is, how does that affect somebody, in this case, O.J. Simpson? Does it have an effect on him that you could put the puzzle pieces together to indicate like this is how he, how things unfolded to lead to these murders? I think it's kind of a stretch, right? It's not really the story that I thought I would stumble upon based on the patterns you see in psychopathic behavior. But it did make me think about this question of identity, how we identify ourselves, how we see ourselves in the world. And parenting and your family dynamics obviously has a huge effect on that. So just to think that that was his father figure, and then the juxtaposition of O.J. Simpson becomes the beloved athlete of America. And it's worth mentioning that he was adored by white America, right? This famous story of how his legal team went into his house and made sure to change all the pictures in the house that were predominantly of him with white friends to make him more relatable to the black jury members. So it did make me wonder, was part of this legacy as the football hero and then the celebrity in Beverly Hills, like, was part of that imaging on a subconscious level, maybe a desire to stand out in a way that broke away from the shame of having a gay father who not only is gay, but is out and about being a drag queen and then dies of AIDS in the 80s, right? Curious as always what you guys think about this. Let me know in the comments.